It's not a you thing, it's a hormone thing. HRT, what exactly is it? And does every single woman need it? They're 10 pounds overweight and now they're looking at Ozempic. I don't want to do this anymore. This is too hard. Well, what are you going to do then? Hey guys, and welcome back to It's Pretty Simple, a podcast about fitness, nutrition, and fat loss. And I'm here to help you make your journey just a little bit more simple and easier. So today on the episode, we're going to be talking about a topic I talked about and had an episode with a guest a little while ago. We got some great feedback, so I thought we'd dive in a little bit deeper into this topic. So today's guest, we have somebody who's been helping women transform their health, strength, and confidence for over 30 years as a certified personal trainer, precision nutrition coach, and biomechanics specialist. So she's created Strong Her series, a program that's dedicated to women, empowering women over 45 to navigate menopause with a balanced, sustainable approach and focusing on training smarter, fueling the body well, and building the right mindset. So today with me, I have Kim. Hi, Kim. Welcome to the show.
Hi, it's so lovely to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course, so happy to have you. I'm dying to dive into menopause. We had done an episode previously with perimenopause, and I know it all goes hand in hand together. But I'd really like to get your take on it.
Yes, absolutely. And really for me that you talked a little bit about, the transition and where you are. And that's really what I've done in my journey as a coach is, years ago, we didn't have the access to people like what we're doing here. So when we used to have to learn the old way, we would have to go back to school and look at courses to supplement what we do as trainers. So it's been a journey for me as I've aged, just finding the right thing for my population. So as I've aged, so has my content and the product that I've given to my clients, because it's based on where, a lot of the times where we are as coaches in our journey. So my learning about perimenopause, menopause, and what we're doing right now is literally transformative for me as well, going through it. And then trying to be a step ahead of my clients and what their needs may be for where we're all going in our aging process. So it's been quite exciting to dive into this. It's not an unknown because many, many, many women have done this before. I think the unknown part is they would have suffered in silence and not had an opportunity to understand to the depth what we know now. So I feel like this age group here, we're forging new opportunities for you younger women to be able to have hopefully a smoother transition into this new phase of life that doesn't have to be overwhelming and daunting. So you go ahead, hit me with what you got and what your audience would love to know about, and I'll do my best to answer.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I mean what you said is right. I mean, even as I age, like my focus group tends to age with me. So we're just all transitioning together, and my job with my clients is, like you said, be a little bit ahead of the game so I know how to help them better. Like I've never been a mom. My clients are all moms, and the hormonal thing is also different, but I try my best to be as up to date and also feel what I'm feeling at my age now, and continue to train my clients based on that. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting, and I mean, at some point I'm gonna get to where you are, so it's great to have to learn it now, because I mean, when my mom went through menopause, I don't think I really knew what was going on. I think she was one of those people who just did it in silence, you know.
Yeah.
So at that time, we never really asked questions or really understood too much about it. So it's great that we have this access now and we have people like you to help us understand things. Awesome. So I'm going to jump in and go into some of the questions. So one of the biggest struggles that women face during menopause is weight gain. And this is obviously a big issue, and it's especially around the midsection. So what is really happening during this phase for women? Because if you're somebody who doesn't naturally gain weight a lot and then you're going through menopause and all of a sudden, you're starting to get that belly, it can be very frustrating. So what is happening?
Yeah. And, I'm going to say this a lot, I'm sure, during this podcast. It is hormonal. And I know that that's kind of a catch all. I mean, if you took a look at the body and we broke it down from the top of the head to the bottom of the feet, and we went from, brain fog to night sweats to weight gain. I mean, all of it ends up being hormonal in the sense of estrogen. When we have an estrogen drop as we're going through perimenopause, estrogen plays a big factor in where our fat gets deposited. We have a little bit higher insulin resistance. So as you know, like even the foods we eat are now, we can't skin the same cat as we did 10 years ago. So the one thing that I would advise and take a look at even for yourself is, what am I doing today? And be open to, as you feel like things are changing for you, be open to the opportunity of looking at different ways to eat, different ways to move, to keep, not to keep up with it, but to just be open to know that what you're doing today may not be exactly what you need to do next month or next year. So yes, as the estrogen falls, some women will notice that they get more of their belly, that midsection belly. But I think the big picture is looking at what you're doing again. Like, are you still moving? Are you, because we blame hormones for a lot of these issues. But I think if we took a look back and we dissected what we were doing 5 years ago to what we're doing now, we may see things like more snacking, so a little more slippage in our day-to-day food. Maybe we're bringing in more carbs and we need to bring in some more protein. Maybe we're not getting our 10,000 steps in. So in addition to our hormone dropping, and seeing these shifts in where our fat's being deposited, we can't just keep going back to, well, it's my hormones. And if you want to make changes, there's changes that we can make to help with these fluctuating hormones. And one of them is just being very mindful of what's happening within our body. And what we used to say was, oh, okay, well, this is what I need to do to lose a couple pounds. Well, now that formula is going to look a little bit different than it did when you were 30 or 40.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I feel like for me, like it's also different now in my 30s than it was in my 20s. Things
Yes.
have changed and I've had to adapt my training. I've had to adapt my nutrition. I find I've always had an issue with my belly, but then in my 20s, when I really dialed down my nutrition and my training, I managed to get rid of it. And then it was great. And then now coming back into my 30s, it's starting to happen all over again, and I just know it's just about changing things up. I need to adapt my training. And we are going to continuously keep changing because our hormones are different from men, and it is just what it is. But yeah, I feel like a lot of women as well in the past, like when they say it's my hormones, not even in the past, quite recently, I've had a lot of clients or potential clients that I've spoken to, and they're like, yeah, I don't know why I can't lose weight. I'm going to go do a hormonal check. And it's like, before you do that, are you, like you said, hitting your 10,000 steps? Are you actually in that calorie deficit? Are you doing your strength training? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? But the first thing is, there must be something wrong with me, you know?
Yes.
And yes, that's just what I see people doing all the time. And yeah, you're right. Like, even though when you do go through perimenopause and menopause, there is obviously a shift in hormones, correct? But
Mhm.
you still stick to the basics.
And you know what? I honestly, there are very few women that I've coached, and not to say that not all of them fall in under this category where calories in and deficits and making sure that you've got your exercise, that recipe works. So I'm going to say that yes, there are some outliers in that in that community. But at the end of the day, when people come to me and they're like, I've done everything. This is what I eat. I eat clean. I'm like, let me take a look at it. Give me 3 weeks to just see where the gaps are, if there are any. And if I can't show you, or maybe it's consistency, maybe it's the slippage that we just talked about. If we can't dial in what the issue is, by all means, go look at HRT, and go look at well, gosh, people are now extreme where they're 10 pounds overweight and now they're looking at Ozempic, like, or a weight loss drug. So I think the big thing for me is just looking at the basics first, and then how can we approach if we're not getting the results that we ideally should be. I think the big thing for me is, and not to excuse hormonal changes. I don't want to just dispel or take away that that the things that are happening to us will make maybe weight loss, strength training, whatever your goals are, maybe it takes a little bit longer, or we need to dive into it a little bit more. So I don't want to take away the hormonal changes that are happening, but I think the big thing is looking at the basics first. How much sleep are you getting? Where's your stress tolerance and your management? And what do you have for helping you through stressful situations? Where's your nutrition? We need to up our protein. Yes, but that doesn't mean that we're at 90% protein. We need to make sure that we've got some basic movement in our life. If all of those have a good, you're checking all the boxes there, then please, go ahead and look for hormonal replacements. Go ahead and look to options that may help you with some of your symptoms. But let's make sure we have the basics first. And then you're so much more aware of what's going on when you implement these outside sources like HRT.
So, coming to HRT, what exactly is it? And does every single woman need it?
Yeah, and this is going to be something you're going to hear me say again a lot. It depends, because I mean, all of my friends right now are going through some form of perimenopause or in menopause, postmenopause, and we all are very different, very different. So I think a lot of it depends on what you're dealing with. Like the HRT that I've seen people add to their world, to their life, has been for symptoms. So let's talk about, I'm like an experiment person. I do experiments on myself all the time. And to be quite honest, as I was going through and coming into perimenopause, I was scared shitless, and I apologize if I'm not allowed to swear, so I'll let me know. But I was scared shitless of going into this phase, which I really hope that as your population is aging, that we as an older population haven't done this to you. But for me, all this talk about perimenopause and what to expect, and I'm scared. Like I suffer from anxiety and depression. Is that going to make me feel suicidal? I suffer from, easy weight gain. Is that going to be, I've got to, now navigate gaining weight? How am I going to do this? Like, how am I going to navigate this? And how am I going to come to terms with it and show up for my coaching clients? So I hope that, through the information that we're sharing, we get a chance to help you not be anxious about this stage of life, because it doesn't have to be like that. But hormone replacement really should be a place where you're looking at helping subside symptoms. So sleeping, progesterone is a great supplement that we could use for helping us navigate sleep deprivation. We know that sleep is one of our superpowers. If we're not getting sleep, everything else seems to have a bigger effect. Stress, eating, cravings, estrogen topical versus estrogen as a pill or a cream is going to be very different for each of us to help serve different symptoms. So as we age, we get vaginal dryness, and sex can become very uncomfortable. And we need to be connected with our partner, but it doesn't make sense if you're in pain. So, being able to use a product like estrogen to help with our, some of the issues that we're having down below that may be caused by hormonal changes is wonderful. Testosterone for some women, again, all these things will be added to our system based on what we need, not necessarily just because your blood work told you so. So here's my example, or my experiment. I wasn't having any symptoms from a perimenopausal perspective, but I knew based on my blood work, I'm in perimenopause.
Okay.
I went to two different providers, and they both had the same blood work. So one that prescribed based on symptoms, and the other prescribed based on my blood work. Okay. My symptom doctor said, listen, based on where you are from a symptomatic perspective, your blood work we could adjust your progesterone and your DHEA, but without the symptoms, I'm just going to leave you where you are. The other doctor sends me to get compounded estrogen, progesterone, and DHEA. I decide that I'm going to try it. I go on each of them at separate times. So I do my progesterone for 2 weeks, go off of it. Do my estrogen for 2 weeks, go off of it. Do my DHEA, go off of it. All three of them, I had adverse side effects to. Not sleeping, vivid dreams, like crazy dreams where I would wake up in the morning feeling like I've got a wet sweat going on because of my dreams, not because I was night sweating. So it was very interesting. Estrogen, I put weight on. So it was very interesting to be in a place where, I could control what I was doing, the eating, the sleeping, the nutrition, and trying each of these different drugs and finding that each of them had a different side effect for me that wasn't positive.
Mm.
So, do all of us need these products? No, we don't. But I think we need to look at them individually as we are going through symptoms. And I don't think we need to suffer. So, for example, if night sweats are keeping you up or hot flashes are keeping you up, there's things that we could do to supplement to try to alleviate some of these symptoms. If you're having suicidal ideations, yes, we need to look after that right away, because that may not be something that is in your control because your hormones are fluctuating. But we need to supplement when we're having symptoms of this phase. But I don't think we need to if our blood work tells us that we're a little low in estrogen or a little low in progesterone. I think we just need to ride the wave until things start to shift from a hormonal perspective where we're getting symptoms.
That makes sense. I mean, as far as I know, at least, I mean, where I come from and where most of my clients come from, doctors love just prescribing things like, Ozempic and Manjaro is like the new thing there. Everyone's on it. Doctors prescribe it so easily. So very few functional doctors that won't. So I would assume that with hormonal replacement therapy as well, it would probably be the same thing. They do your blood work and say, okay, it's time for you to get on these supplements. But yeah, I guess you're right. I mean, even like if I get a flu, I don't directly go and take medication, to be honest. I'll just try and ride it out. I'll take my vitamins, I'll drink juice, and I'd rest as much as I can, get sleep, hydrate. Then if I continue feeling like shit, then okay, maybe I'll grab medication. It's not the instant thought for me to do.
Yes, and I like that metaphor. I mean, we should be in a place where we can test out the waters. Can we try, a different bedtime routine if we're not getting the sleep? Can we try a few organic changes in our life that help us without being, okay, it's hormones and excuse our behavior to hormone deficits. The other thing is, as far as hormone replacement and longevity, and, I think we need to, look at what we're putting in our bodies. And years ago when hormone replacement used to be the taboo subject that nobody talked about, it's now become, we've had to re-educate our women to say, this isn't our mother's menopause. Like, we have so many other tools that we can use. Maybe it's not a bad idea to get baseline testing when you're 30, when you're 40, when you're 50. But remember, like, all these tests have to be done at the same time, at the same place, with a lot of consistencies to be able to compare apples to apples.
Yeah.
So as we ovulate and, shed our lining and go through a cycle, if we're not getting our blood tested at the same time every year, I mean, what are we really comparing? So even having baseline testing, I think it's a great, I love data, but are you really being able to compare apples to apples? And that's why I think we so need to trust that we can understand the signs of what our body is telling us versus what our, what year to year blood work is saying. Like, I think it's a one part that's important, but we can't rely just on a data of a blood number or to make sure that we're navigating perimenopause well.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's very easy for people to use that as an excuse for a lot of things. I mean, even like there was, I don't see it anymore. I don't know if it's still around the internet, but this whole cortisol craze of cortisol face and cortisol this, like, we need a little bit of cortisol when we wake up. We really do. We need cortisol in the day. And then it just became this whole taboo thing that we shouldn't have any cortisol. And people got really into it. And then everybody was going and testing their cortisol levels because why am I not losing any weight? It's probably my cortisol.
Yeah. And I think this isn't new. I think, feeling frustrated in a journey where you're doing what you think you should be doing to make changes to your body. I think we all look for excuses because we don't want to put, and it's not the work, but when you have so many facets that are changing, it's hard to really understand uh, what we need to be doing. And that's what I love about us, you and I, as coaches, is ideally, like, the coaching world has changed so much. When I got in the industry 30 years ago, I was a fitness trainer. I walked people through a fitness class. We didn't really talk about nutrition. We didn't talk about, sleep or stress management. We stayed in our lane of teaching classes.
Mhm.
Now it's so different. As a coach, my job is to look at the facets of wellness, and what we're doing as coaches to help facilitate a one-stop shop like you do with your people. How can we look at the big picture? Because we know that if you have stress in your life, your cortisols change and you may be a little bit more resistant to the body weight shedding because of a situation that you're in. So it's our job now as coaches to look at the big picture from a wellness perspective, not just one entity, not just fitness, not just nutrition, but how are you sleeping? How much stress do you have in your life? What's situational? What are you managing? And then how are your hormones changing? Like, we're just adding another layer to an already complicated system. So I love where we are now as coaches, that we can get supplementary education to help our clients and really dissect what's going on, and not just be, okay, well, you can come to me for nutrition, but you're going to have to go see a personal trainer for training, and you're going to have to go see a doctor for your blood work. We could really bring that together as one package to be ideally a one-stop shop for our clients, and pull this gap together to really show them that, it doesn't need to be as hard as it is. And are you being consistent? Are you taking responsibility for your actions? How many clients do you have that 90% of them are compliant Monday through or Sunday through Thursday? Friday and Saturday become a free for all, and they're wondering why they're stuck in maintenance mode.
Yeah, I mean, the one of the main things I always tell my clients is like, it's not about, I'm not here to punish you. I need you to be honest
Yes.
with yourself. You gotta learn to be honest with yourself, because if you're, can you lie to me? Okay, I'm not gonna do anything. It's at the end of the day, it's your results. But are you honest with yourself? That's the first thing. But yeah, that's definitely something that I think it's just human psychology, and it's great, that we do get to combine all of that. I mean, even when I started, I didn't start. I started 13 years ago, and I think back then as well, there was not really that merge as yet. Even when I started, I feel like it just kind of started happening just pre-COVID maybe. Yeah. So even when I was a fitness coach, teaching classes, and that was kind of it. And I used to do online training plans. That's it. Then clients are not getting results, and you're like, oh, you're not eating well. It's not my problem, right? That's not my department. But now getting to merge all those things together is really great. And we also become shrinks as well at the same time,
Yes.
which is
Yes.
important, I think, for the stress part of it. I think it's quite important to be able to help your
Yeah.
client manage their stress. Yeah.
I mean, certainly I try to stay in my lane, but even for them to have a sounding board as to what's going on. And for me, the big part of that is like the psychology of it is navigating and setting up expectations, So you know what? You're going through a rough time. Recognize it. But what you're doing right now will have the results will show. We just need to stay the course. Like we just need to get through this. And not that perimenopause is one of those situations where we're, holding on for dear life and hoping to get through it unscathed. Because for many of us, this lasts years. I don't want you to feel like crap every day until, your hormones settle, because we've got lots of options. But the end of the day, let's go back to the basics. Make sure we have those, especially right now in your 30s and 40s. Do your very best to have the basics looked after. So as your hormones start to shift, you really know what's going on. It's not a you thing; it's a hormone thing. So you can take the that saboteur that sits on our shoulder and tells us that we're not doing enough, or we're a piece of crap because we've indulge on a charcuterie board and a few glasses of wine. We take that little saboteur and we put data on top of it so that you can understand what's happening and set the proper expectations up for where you should be. And I think that's the big job from a psychology perspective as coaches, because most of the women that I've coached have had this ebb and tide of on the roller coaster, off the roller coaster, and you're chasing your tail. But for us, it's getting past some of those the drama of, fuck it, I don't want to do this anymore, this is too hard. Well, what are you going to do then? What's your next step? Go back to eating like shit and feeling like shit? Like, what if we just see this through and and put something, a different strategy together to help you get over this little speed bump? Like, what a novel idea.
Yeah. That's the idea, right? Coming to women who are maybe right now in perimenopause or even going through menopause. So I would assume women in that age bracket have been women who have gone through almost every diet possible, every crash diet possible, every yo-yo diet possible. There was a cabbage diet and some potato diet, and I don't know, all these things. So I've got a few clients who are at that age right now, and their mindset is still there, where I need to detox. I need to fast for X amount of hours for 5 days and just live on liquids. I need to, do these things. And yes, I'm younger, but I know that that's a foolish thing to do. You're not supposed to do that. So I just want to understand the impact of doing something like that while you are going through perimenopause or menopause.
Yeah. You know what? And I think that's where I see the biggest issues is we go back to some of that behavior where it's like, well, I just need to starve myself. I just need to exercise, 10 hours a week. And right as our hormones are changing, I believe that it's the worst time to be experimenting with fad diets. I think that we need to look at a big picture of staying consistent with our food at a calorie deficit, ideally to lose weight. But most important, we need to up our protein. As we age, our hormones are shifting. We don't absorb protein like we would have at the 30-year-old. Now, that doesn't mean we need to be eating, 150 grams of protein a day. But I think for most of us, we need to be even up in that, upwards of that 100 grams of protein a day, where standard diet, we're barely at, 50. and people are saying, oh, that's way too high. So I think that making sure that we're not adding insult to injury with things like intermittent fasting or eating too less of calories is going to make the deficit of the hormones even more exaggerated than it would have been if I was at your age, at 30 or 40. So I think it's most important that we find something that we can be consistent on. So then we can navigate the hormones, and we're not trying to throw spaghetti at the wall with cleanses and, timing our food. And, we just need to navigate being consistent over these fad diets, which could maybe possibly cause more issue down the line with hormonal fluctuations.
Yeah, that makes sense because it's just, I know it's like a mindset thing that people have and they're so stuck in that. Like, I feel like this is probably going to be the last generation that's going to have that problem, and that's a great thing. But but
I hope so.
Yeah, I think it's the last generation that's going to have that problem, but the problem exists, like I've got some clients who just like, they will just ghost me for a little period of time so that they can do this, like go on a fast or go on a detox, because I obviously don't approve of it. So in terms of the nutrition aspect, there's a lot of different advice that's been given to women who are in menopause. So according to you, what are your recommendations when it comes to the proteins, the carbs, the fats? Does it change at all other than, upping the protein a little bit more?
Yeah. Now, my philosophy is keeping things fairly consistent. So when I give calorie advice, I obviously, especially for women that are looking to lose weight, I make sure that we're in a deficit, but not a crazy deficit. Like, our body typically needs 1,000 to 1,200 calories just to survive, get out of bed, do our day to day. So I'm not a fan of eating less. I like to give, my philosophy is, let me give you as much food as you can, and find a place where you're still losing weight and having enough energy and enough brain fuel so that you're not getting in a place where you're hitting a wall or lack of energy through the day. So I will make sure that their macros are 35% protein, and then 30 and 35% fat and carbs. Now, I'll watch the starchy carbs, and ideally, it's really easy. Like most of us, we can get a starchy carb in to satisfy a craving quickly. Crackers, granola bars, chips, they're easy to grab. So I'll usually try to get my clients to be mindful of their starchy carbs. So if they want an oatmeal in the morning, maybe that's their starchy carb for the day, or a rice at lunch, or a potato at supper. And then the rest of their carbs will come from fruits and veggies.
Okay.
So I'll be mindful of their starchy carbs, only because it's something that we could easily grab. And if anybody's going to make get their quick calories from something, it's usually starchy carbs.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first thing. The second thing is, if they're only eating 20% of their diet in protein, I'll work to get 25% in, and we'll work to get a few extra pieces of protein in, because the big picture is if I can keep you satiated and I can keep you feeling like you've got good energy, the one thing that goes away is cravings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Surprisingly enough. So like I said, as we age, we don't absorb the protein that we used to. So we need to up our protein, but that doesn't mean that you go from 20% to 35%. We're just going to do a small increase. And then the new research is your protein, we don't necessarily store protein. Like our body uses so much of the protein for recovery, for energy, that at the end of the day, there's not a lot left to store. So usually, if we're not if we're not storing protein, we're storing fat or carbs. So if we're navigating the fuel that we're bringing in and we're using it on a day to day, we won't have fat storage from either one of those resource or from either one of those sources. And you can go back and forth with your fat and your carbs. So one day you might be at 40% fat and 20% carbs, or vice versa, and they can negate each other. So the fat and the carbs, I can be very flexible on. The two pieces that I'm not as flexible on is the protein and the calories.
Yeah, I do the same thing with my clients right now as well. I mean, I think it's just, it's becomes habits from now that can just continue on later on as well. I follow pretty much the same thing. I don't really think about the carbs and fats too much. It's more just the protein, um, getting in and keeping it. Um,
The one thing that I want to mention is as we age, we get systemic inflammation, which ends up like any of your clients right now that you're dealing with that, seem to be stubborn and their weight isn't coming off. We have to take a look at as our hormones decrease, we get this inflammation that just takes over our body. And some of that is with the food that we're eating. So it's again really important to dial into how you're feeling after your meals. Are you being able to process the protein and process the nutrients without feeling bloated or unwell? Are you going to the bathroom every day? Like things like that will start to change as the hormones adjust in our body. So I think it's important to really take a look at how you're feeling day to day with the food that you're giving yourself. For example, I have colitis. And for 90% of my life, I have always felt like I do a celebratory poo dance when, I have a good bowel movement. So as I'm coming into menopause or perimenopause, this is getting exaggerated. Like my guts are not feeling well. I'm trying more magnesium. I'm using products like citrus mag to purge my system to try to, reset it to get to a place where I'm not feeling like a bag of balls. Um, Here's what I had to do. I had to adjust my protein levels. I was eating 140 grams of protein. I took it down to 120, and oh my gosh, and then I added being conscious of getting 5 servings of veggies in. And oh my gosh, my guts are working better than they ever have. So, just real time examples of somebody that's in the industry that understands what, we should be doing and had to do some micro adjustments to how I'm eating just to make sure that my whole system is working well. Like sleep, guts, like they're all baseline behaviors that can really shift when you've also got hormonal imbalances.
Yeah, I think the most important takeaway from this is having that self awareness more than anything else. If you're not aware,
Yes.
you're not going to know what's happening. And I think this is another thing where a lot of people, they'll follow the basics, right? I got to get my protein, I got to get my sleep, I got to get this stuff, but they're not fully aware of all these other things as well. Like with cravings, for example, like my go to trick is make sure you have veggies or a bit of salad before any meal that you have. Cravings are going to disappear. I've tried
Right.
it myself, I tried it on my clients, and it has worked. So what I tell clients is, here, you need to be having X amount of veggies per day so that we're going to subside all your cravings. And then, people do it sometimes, they don't do it sometimes, and I'm like, is it working? And they're like, I don't know. Now you have to become aware of what's going on with you. There's no awareness with brain and body. And I think that's one of the most important things when it comes to any weight loss journey, whether you want to build muscle, whether you're training for a marathon, having the awareness with what you're doing is so, so important to be in tune with your body.
If I may, like before we finish off, let's go through like kind of a checklist for your clients, especially at the age of the people that you're coaching, is things to be aware of. And again, I think it's our job as coaches to help them navigate what those signs of the bodies are, and then how to change that. So, for example, if you're feeling systemic inflammation, and that might feel like creaky in the knees and the joints, maybe we need to look at a good supplement like turmeric or omega-3s or something like George's aloe vera to bring the inflammation down. Great research has now come out on CBD and cannabinoids on the ability to help with systemic inflammation. So
Okay.
it's really hard. It doesn't matter where, like go ahead and try to lose weight on while you have a period. What? That, your weight fluctuates anywhere from 5 to 10 pounds, and it's not fat. And that's what I'm finding for a lot of my women is, this elevated scale weight on the scale isn't fat. It's the systemic inflammation that they're holding. So you need to watch for signs. Any injury that we had as a young adult, you may have fixed the injury, but now you've got arthritis. Now there's parts of your body that joints are aching. We need to look at options of what we can do for those for what we can do for that achiness. And one of the big things is just taking a look at what we're eating. Not fueling yourself during the day is one of the biggest culprits, because as we age, it ends up being a detriment to having to fix a metabolic issue. And then now you're trying to lose weight. Well, you haven't fed yourself all day and you're eating 90% of your calories from 6 o'clock till 10 or 11 o'clock at night, and then wondering why you feel like shit throughout the day and you don't have energy to work out. So remember, like feeding yourself in small increments to keep your fuel, your furnace burning is a big deal. Now, I'm not taking that away from the people that are doing intermittent fasting and love it, because I have clients that absolutely love it. But if you're coming home and you're needing to eat yourself out of house and home, maybe that's not working for you. You know, maybe you like those indulgences on the weekend, but you can maintain a fairly regimented schedule Sunday through Thursday. Well, cut back 100 calories on the weekday so you've got a little bit more room to move on the weekend. Your basis of walking, never, ever, ever take for granted that if you're getting in your 10,000 steps, that's your base of that'll just serve you so well as you're aging. And then most importantly, like I have some of my women now going, well, I can't run anymore. I can't do HIIT anymore. They say that we just need to be strength training. I think we need to look at the big picture. Like maybe we need to add a day of strength training over 4 days of cardio. But at the end of the day, we still need to be doing something that we can be consistent in. So I was a runner.
Yeah, I have a question based
Yeah.
on that. I wanted to ask about the training aspect. Like, of course, strength training becomes extremely important the more we age. But what if, like you said you were a runner. What if somebody's a runner? I'm 35. I just became a runner. It's a new thing in my
Yeah.
life. So, I mean, do I have to stop? As I
Yeah.
start going into perimenopause? Is that a thing?
No. I think that I think that that's the wrong way to look at it. Now, my running career, I used to run marathons and halves and races, but that was something I did for my headspace. And it was a way, I call it my church. So if somebody's telling me to give up my church, something that I'm going to be consistent in, and do something that I don't really enjoy, how consistent am I really going to be? So the way I navigated that was I started to pull back from running from a perspective of training for races where I'm running 4 days a week or 5 days a week. And I just shifted it to 3 days a week and started adding 3 days of strength training, and literally 30 minutes, those 3 training sessions.
Okay.
So still getting my church, but then what that was happening with my strength training was I noticed that I was running better, that my injuries were less. So I'm like, this is a really great compliment to my running. So maybe the big thing for me, the takeaway was, could I have been a better runner if I added in a few more days of strength functional training? in my running days. And maybe I wouldn't have been injured in some of the things that I had come up for me. So no, I don't want you to give up running. I want you to be consistent. Yeah, I want you to be consistent in something that you can be consistent in, but don't negate the benefits of adding 2 or 3 days of even quick and dirty strength training, like full body, get in, get
Yeah.
out, get done.
Strength training is my church. It was really hard for me to start cutting that down. So I've gone from 6 days of strength training to 3 days of strength training and 3 days of running because I've just started getting into running and I signed up for half a marathon at the end of the year. So it's been hard, but now I've started to notice that I'm actually enjoying going out for a run, sometimes a little bit more than strength training, but I still get them done, obviously. But maybe in a way it's good that I strength trained for so long. I'm less prone to injuries now that I've started in my mid 30s.
Yes.
Yeah,
And I agree. I think that it's something that you should be aware of. And, for your population of the women that you're training, I mean, we can all like, whether that's a cardio, like a slow, steady, getting your walks in, or a run or a hit, something that helps you get out those endorphins, helps you process a little better, brings you back to homeostasis with your headspace, which ends up being sometimes more important for us as we're aging, is an outlet.
yeah. So doing hit uh 3 times a week, is that recommended for women going through perimenopause or menopause?
I don't mind it, but I think that, if that's all you're doing, you're missing a big component of what we need for longevity. So, in the sense of, when you take a look at your parents and how they're aging and what they've done in their life, you can see a lot of signs on how you're going to age just genetically. So, if we're not lifting and we're just doing hit, we're missing a huge component of what we need to be strong, agile, avoid falls, and or not just avoiding falls, but being able to come back from falls in our last 10 years of life. Like, I've got a grandbaby now. I want to be able to lay on the floor with her and get up off the floor without, having to hold on to a couch to get off the floor. I want to be able to run and play with her 10 years from now. So I've got to look after that now, not 10 years from now.
Yeah.
Whatever you're doing now is going to be the precipice of how you age. Like, I believe that there's not a bad time to start, but if you want to have optimal health and you want to age gracefully, and you want to have a lead an active life as a senior, you can't start looking at these things now at 60, 70 years old. We need to have had a base to be able to start navigating, because at 60 and 70 years old, now you're being reactive to issues rather than being proactive to situations.
Okay. So what would the advice be that you would give a woman who's just starting to get into perimenopause now and, does not know where to start?
Yeah. First and foremost, honestly, take a look, do inventory of your 5 things. Your sleep, is it changed? Your stress management. We all have stress, but how are you navigating? Is it getting tougher to navigate the molehills? Are the molehills becoming mountains because you just don't have the capacity or the same opportunity to navigate the stress as you did 10 years ago? Is your nutrition sound? Are you moving? And then finally look at your hormones. But I think that you have to look at those 5 elements before you start blaming one thing or another. So have a good base and use people like yourself as a coach to help navigate and collect the data that you need to be able to be in a place where you can start to make changes based on the data that you're collecting.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. And before we wrap up, what's the one thing you wish more women knew about menopause and their health?
I think the one thing that the one takeaway that I will give your population is please don't be scared of this. Please don't be in a position where you're, scared and nervous going into this phase. Collect the information that you need, listen to your body, and have the opportunity to be flexible in your mindset. Don't get rigid in your thinking that this is something that, you should know about. We have so many tools. Don't get bogged down in the information. Go back to what you know about you. Don't forget, this is where you're going to get the information. The podcasts will all be out there. We'll all be, gathering information about what we should be doing, but go back to what is working for you and be flexible if it's not working to be able to change things on the fly.
That's good advice. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all unique beings. And I think when you're going through something like menopause, you become even more unique. It wouldn't, like you said, it's not the same for your friends as it is for you. And the way your hormones are going to fluctuate, the levels is going to be completely different from another person. So having that self-awareness, I think, is probably one of the most important things in this. Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Anything else you'd like to leave us with before we wrap up?
You know what? I just wanted to say thanks for the opportunity. And most important, thanks for showing up for your clients. Sometimes we get into a place where we're putting ourselves out there and being vulnerable, especially bringing another coach in and, like talking about a subject that, ideally you want to explore more for yourself. So thank you. And I hope your clients and your people that are on the podcast recognize that you are trying to be better for not only you, but for them. So, congratulations for just wanting to be better. That's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I've honestly been loving having guests coming on and understanding things that I'm not that great at, that, and it teaches me so much more as well. And I've really been enjoying this entire process. So thank you so much for coming on to the show.
Yeah, have an amazing day.
All right, guys. So thanks for watching this week's episode of It's Pretty Simple. Today we had Kim. You can follow her on social media in the show notes. And I will see you guys next week. Thank you so much.